Today we're talking about lawn care and landscape business insurance. This is huge, and I guess technically this covers any business insurance. There's a few things that you really need to pay attention to if you're starting out, if you're in business and you're not paying attention to these things. You can have so many issues because you're not protecting yourself from the liability that comes with running a business. So if you're in business, you're starting business, you need to know what you need to take care of and you're questioning those things, it's the perfect video for you. Before I get into that though, I'm Jacob Godar. I have been in the landscape industry for years now. I mean, I used to do this back before I had the business, then we started the business. Now we have a location in Springfield and Florida. And I've seen from working from someone to working in different industries to having our own business, how important insurance can be on a multitude of different things. So that's really the background I come from to be able to speak on this stuff. And it got even more in depth when I had my business and I saw what could truly happen in business and how many issues could truly come up and where this could lead you and the problems that you could have. So let's get right into it. I've got three main things that you need to make sure you have. And then these all kind of lead into other things and different things you can do with these. And first is your general liability over your business. That's gonna be the initial thing that if you go and start out, you're gonna get. When I started my business, I had it through State Farm because that's just the insurance I had, right? And I had it on my home and everything else. I quickly learned though that they weren't as geared towards business insurance as some other potential providers. And the more I learned about insurance over time, I learned that, State Farm is only able to offer you State Farm's products versus going to a brokerage, which wasn't captive to one insurance company. They could offer you products from all these different carriers. So you could get a multitude of quotes and you could get a multitude of different levels of services with a broker in between the two of you, hopefully acting on your behalf in good interest and in good faith, right? So general liability was the first thing I ever got. I just had a really basic random plan when I started. And that's all I really needed because it was really tiny. I was mowing 20 lawns. I, was maybe making $500 or $600 a week in revenue. It was a very, very tiny startup thing. And that quickly expanded. And I learned more and more and more about what can be added to these policies as far as umbrellas, as far as you start having employees out in the field, if they're gonna come in contact with clients and maybe somebody says the wrong thing, insurance to protect you if you have to fight that case, insurance for if there's an HR issue in your business, which is something that it could definitely happen in your business. There's a lot of liabilities in running a business, and if someone gets fired and they don't think it's valid and they want to try to fight that case, there's insurance that helps protect you on that. And that's why it's so nice to have a broker that knows things. So when you get that general liability and you start getting things set up, they know the things to ask. Do you have this? Do you have this? There's so many little caveats to it. So you got your general liability. That's huge. Number two, this is going to happen more when you start having employees. This is employee driven, and that's workman's comp. This is going to be when your employee gets hurt. This is going to kick in. This is going to pay for that. This is going to pay for whatever extent it needs to make them whole again after whatever injury happened on the job. Now, workman's comp insurance is one of the most expensive things in our whole insurance. It is the most expensive thing we pay for on insurance. It's what drives the cost of our insurance up every year. What drives it up the most. And in general, all things in your insurance are going to increase due to your exposure. They determine your exposure by looking at how much revenue you're producing, because the more dollars you produce, the more exposure you have for general liability, the more exposure you have for everything you do. And so the same thing happens like on general liability, dollars you produce, workman's comp, dollars paid out on payroll. So that's going to drive that up. You pay more and more and more and more on how many dollars of payroll. And workman's comp is extremely important. There's a bunch of different things to this. It's probably a little bit different in every state. There's different codes. So if you've got a person mowing lawns, you've got a person doing hardscaping, you've got a person roofing, they all have different workman's comp codes. And you need to make sure you get those right in case of a situation that those pay out, that those take care of things, and that all is well with that insurance. Now, the other part to be thinking about though is keeping up with, like for us, we've always been a growing company. We're always adding more and more people, adding more and more jobs, building. If you're growing a lot, your workman's comp, you might say, I'm gonna have 100,000 in payroll this year, but by the end of the year, you can have $200,000 in payroll. And now if you get audited or whatever the case may be at the end of the year, not audit like your taxes, audit the insurance, your workman's comp, you're going to have a big overage on that. You're going to have to pay the difference between what you assumed you would have in payroll to what you really had in payroll. And the way the workman's comp codes work out is for mowing, you might pay $1 on the 100. And I'm just pulling these right out of the sky. These are not true. You might pay 1 out of 100. For pavers, you might pay 5 out of every 100 in payroll goes to that. So these all have different numbers. And if you make a huge expansion, like you're gonna pay very, very little for a secretary in your office. You're gonna pay a lot for someone up on a roof, because the relationship of the job to danger, meaning the more danger it has being on a roof, you could fall and die much easier than you could fall out of your chair and die. The higher that class code is gonna charge per 100, however you wanna say, for all of your payroll. So those are all things to think about. Those are things to think about while you're expanding. There's the things to think, like, this is expensive in general. You need to pay attention to this. There are different payroll systems that you pay every week for this with the payroll. I like that because it keeps up with it. I've never done it that way. I've always just upped and upped and upped and upped our workman's comp as we grew. And if we had a really huge blowout year, we just set the next year a little bit bigger than that. And then there's times where I've had an audit where I've had to pay $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 because there was a difference. And all in all, it didn't matter. It was just, we had to catch it up. It is what it is. If that sounds horrible to you, it's business. Eventually, you're gonna have the exact same problem. You're gonna owe something. $70, it's all relative. It could be $70 to you, it could be $7,000 to me. Someday it'll be $70,000 for you. You know, things happen in business. So workman's comp, big deal, pay attention to it. It's huge. This is also something where you wanna keep your employees as safe as possible. You don't wanna have to use workman's comp, because every time someone makes a workman's comp claim, it bumps your workman's comp cost. Having a wreck is gonna maybe change your insurance rates, things like that. But workman's comp is pretty drastic. You have a workman's comp rating, right? And after so many years of doing good, that can kind of drop and reduce and save you some cost. If you start having accident after accident, that's gonna go up and up and up and up and up. They call it a mod. And so that mod is gonna go up and up and up. You want to try to keep everybody safe and have that mod go down, since it's one of the most expensive things. Now, finally, those are the first two I like to talk about because I always have employees. But if you don't have employees, you would probably be coming in counter with general liability. And this next one we're going to talk about, which is inland marine. This is going to be all of your assets that are bigger than, $500, $1,000, whatever the number is. Talk to your insurance agent. I am not an insurance professional. I do not give insurance advice. I am just giving you what I know from where I have been and what I have done. So I have a hard time saying it, don't know why. It's inland marine. With that, that's gonna be like your mowers. That's not your trucks, because there's gonna be your automotive insurance that all goes into your general liability. It is your mowers and your equipment kind of in between, right? Stuff that doesn't have a title on it. And this is a really, really big thing to track, because if you don't add a mower to that, it might not be covered if you lose one, if you have something happen, if you have what we just had happen to us. We just had one roll into a canal, it ruined the mower. And so since that happened, we'd already, when we bought the thing, we turned in its value, we turned in its serial number, we turned in its model, we turned in everything about it so it could get added and it could be on that schedule for the inland marine. And so since it was on there, they were able to go back to that when the accident happened, see it was covered, it was listed on there, and we were good to go. Things were easy. But when you're growing and you're ramming and jamming, or you're not paying much attention, just for whatever reason, if you don't get things added to that and you think they're just gonna be covered and everything else, you're mistaken. And that could end up with problems. We rolled that in there. It was an $11,000 machine. We could be out $11,000. And that's just another challenge that we have to overcome. The whole idea of insurance is protecting yourself from liabilities so you don't have as much to overcome in business. Shit is gonna roll downhill and things are gonna happen to you. So protect yourself from some of those things with insurance. These are just a few of the key things, but my best advice to you is talk to some business owners in your area. And even if you don't feel like you're quite there yet, like, hey, I'm not a big business owner and I have no business talking to these people, connect with family or friends or somebody that knows someone running a business or someone that has some kind of relationship with someone running a business, and ask them about who they work with, who have they done business with insurance, to try to get guided in the right direction. Because having that broker there for you, I've got someone that I can call, I can text at any time, tell them my issues, talk about the problems, talk about what are we gonna do, this needs to be fixed now. And I've got someone on my side to help those things get fixed, get taken care of, and make sure they're managed. Anytime I need to add something, anytime I need to subtract something, anytime I've got questions. I've formed a great relationship over the years. We've been with this company forever, ever since we left State Farm till now. So it's probably been 10 years, nine or 10 years so far. So form that relationship, get a broker, look at all of this insurance, make sure you've got what you need on your general, you've got the workman's comp and you've got things coded right and you're paying for the right codes, and make sure on your inland marine that you have everything listed so it's gonna be paid out and it's gonna be covered. Because if it's out of that small tool bucket, it starts becoming like a large tool. It needs to be on that so it's covered. So when you have the situation like we had happen, you get it covered, you get it paid for, and you're up and rolling. Insurance is there when stuff goes awry to protect you and keep your business moving forward. If you like this video at all, you liked learning about some of these insurance things, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe and share this with anybody else that's confused about what do they need to start a business, what's the insurance they need to start a business. These are some of the things you're gonna be looking for. Talk to you soon.